The dunes flow uphill against the crosswinds, and our shadows lag exactly 9 seconds behind our movements. Vox timestamps echo before transmission. These are the first impossible facts recorded at gridmark 27 theta. I am interrogator adjunct Severin Crest, Ordo Hereticus, filing this classified account from Vandium Theta's eastern ash wastes. The Binharic annotations threading through this report belong to Magos Explorator Lysiarch 9, whose servo-skull catalogues atmospheric impossibilities while I document the heretical. We hit the ash at dusk drop, the Valkyrie's skids kissing a sea of grey glass and powder that moved with deliberate, unnatural purpose. 30 seconds after boots touched ground, the natural order revealed its first fractures. Ash dunes, each grain fine as powdered bone, flowed westward against gale-force crosswinds that screamed eastward at 47 kilometers per hour. The particulate tide moved with the patience of liturgy, peaks curling upward in defiance of gravity's pull. Our shadows stretched across the undulating waste, but they were wrong. Elongated, distorted things that followed our movements with temporal delay. Always 9 heartbeats behind, as if light itself had developed a stutter in this emperor-forsaken place. The stakes demand immediate documentation. 3 pilgrim convoys vanished along the sacred routes within 72 hours. Between 600 and 1,200 faithful simply ceased to exist at various points along the ash roads. No distress signals, no debris fields, no bodies. The hive's intake stacks will choke under the approaching supercell storm in exactly 72 hours if the pilgrim roads remain blocked. More disturbing, Vox channels across the subsector carry reverse chant corruption. Litanies spoken backwards, prayers that end before they begin, catechisms that teach themselves to those who listen. My team moves with practiced discipline despite environmental impossibilities. Kasserkin Sergeant Mara Dace maintains point position, her hellgun tracking empty dunes that somehow feel occupied. Her visor gleams like a saint's mask, reflecting ash that catches light from directions where no illumination source exists. Vox Trooper Havel manages communications, his equipment blessed with sacred oils and purity seals that flutter in wind tasting of old copper coins and spent energy cells. Confessor Malchus Rhine walks at my shoulder, whispering silent litanies that flash on his lips without air, his sensor cold but ready. Magos Explorator Lysiarch 9 extends mechadendrites to sample composition, his binary cant mixing with the wind's howl in patterns that almost sound like inverted hymns. Formation wedge initiated, staggered interval 5. Respirators tuned to 9-count cycle to keep lungs honest and minds focused. The air holds no humidity whatsoever, dry enough to crack lips and draw moisture from lungs with each inhalation. Yet beneath our boots, ash radiates warmth through ceramite, soles, heated from below by some vast unseen furnace. Frost forms on respirator valves despite subsurface heat, creating contradictions that the Magos' instruments struggle to quantify. The silence presses against eardrums like physical weight. No carrion birds wheel overhead. No insects buzz through ash-laden air. No echo returns from our footsteps, as if the dunes absorb sound and digest it into something else entirely. The negative space where life should exist feels more present than the ash beneath our feet. Even the Valkyrie's departure left no diminishing thunder. It simply ceased, as if the sky had closed a mouth. Every 27 seconds, a triple interval ping echoes across Vox channels, 3 short pulses mirroring the opening notes of the Litany of Mercy, but played in reverse. The timing never varies. Signal strength never fluctuates. Havel's equipment traces the source to multiple points simultaneously, as if the sound originates from every grain in perfect synchronization. Trinitarian interval emerging, Havel reports, 2 fingers raised. His voice carries professional calm, but sweat beads beneath his helmet rim. Rhine tightens his grip on the reliquary at his breast, frowning. The Litany of Mercy, he mouths without sound, inverted and dried. We advance toward the last known position of Pilgrim Convoy Tertius Alpha. Each step sinks with soft complaint. an exhale that tastes of rust and forgotten prayers. The wastes welcome silence with hungry patience. Formation discipline maintains our wedge as we crest toward a pilgrim milepost, half buried in drifts that curve impossibly upward. The stone marker rises from ash like a knucklebone. Sacred scripture, usually carved deep into blessed plasteel, has melted into glass. Holy words, frozen mid-syllable in translucent amber streaks that catch grey light like tears. The Emperor's aquila has fused into a single spiral that hurts to look at directly, its geometry suggesting depths that should not exist in 2 dimensions. Mark the anomaly, I order. Marked, Dace replies. Laser designator 1. Rhine approaches with sensor ready, beginning the rite of cleansing. His voice carries strong and clear across the dunes, echoing back from directions where no surfaces exist to create reflection. But the echo arrives before his voice completes each phrase, as if the ash anticipates prayers and responds to words not yet spoken. I key my Vox to report initial findings to orbital command, speaking prescribed identification codes into the microbead pickup. Pilgrim convoys of the Penance Road, respond. Identify and hold. Mercy is available. The transmission begins normally, words carried upward through ash-choked atmosphere. But as I speak, my own voice returns through the Vox speaker before I finish each sentence. Not echo, my exact words, in my exact tone, arriving through communication array moments before broadcast. Havel's face goes pale behind his visor. Interrogator adjunct, our query returned pre-transmission with additional coder. The final phrase emerges from the speaker in perfect mimicry of my voice, clear and distinct through static. Mercy be ninefold, interrogator crest. Mercy be ninefold. I never spoke those words. The ash dunes continue their uphill flow, and our shadows lag behind like guilty thoughts, always 9 seconds too late to match our movements in this place where time itself has learned to pray backwards. The pre-echo traced to a derailed fuel crawler entombed in rippling ash glass, its hull breached and vitrified like a cathedral window frozen mid-shatter. The massive transport sits half buried in dunes that flow uphill against crosswinds. Its surface is smooth as polished bone and radiating heat that defies the sub-zero atmospheric readings crackling through our Auspex arrays. Military formations lock into defensive positions as Sergeant Dace's hand signals establish perimeter cordon. Breach and clear, she whispers through microbead, her hellgun tracking empty air that feels occupied by watching presences. Standard sweep pattern. Watch for pressure plates and tripwires. The crawler's loading bay yawns open like a mouth frozen mid-scream, revealing interior darkness that swallows lumen beam penetration after 3 meters. Environmental anchors shift as we approach. Cold intensifies around exposed skin, while heat blooms under our palms, wherever we touch metal surfaces, as if warmth flows from our bodies into the dead vehicle rather than the reverse. Frost forms on respirator valves, despite subsurface temperatures that register 127 degrees Celsius. Inside the crawler's belly, 16 bodies kneel in perfect formation, facing the forward bulkhead, faces pressed to chests in attitudes of final prayer or submission. Their lungs have vitrified into delicate bead chains resembling rosaries, translucent organs catching grey light and refracting it into patterns that hurt to contemplate directly. Where ribs once protected soft tissue, chains of clear spheres thread along windpipes and bronchi, each bead fused to the next as if exhalation had cooled to glass and refused to leave the body. Bone dust settles in neat piles where flesh once clung to frames, held together by static charge and thin films of prayer wax that coat every surface with sweet cloying scent. The desiccated remains wear simple pilgrim robes, now fused to skin through heat and chemical reaction. Sacred scrolls bonded to epidermis, creating living scripture across forearms and torso. Confessor Rhine steps across the threshold, censer swinging in prescribed arcs. His whispered counter-litanies stir the ash coating every surface, fine particles rising like cathedral incense. but the movement follows rhythm rather than air currents. Each grain responds to sacred syllables with deliberate precision, forming brief spirals that suggest half-remembered faces before dissolving back to powder. "Cleanse this place," he murmurs, voice steady, despite tremor in his hands. "Let the Emperor's light burn away shadow and heresy." The beads in the nearest corpse's chest cavity tremble at his words. A soundless stir ripples along the crystalline chains, bead to bead, like a prayer responding to itself. The ash on the deck lifts exactly one breath's depth and settles again with organic rhythm. Magos Lysiarch 9 extends mechadendrites toward the lead pilgrim, servo skulls hovering like mechanical cherubim, recording atmospheric impossibilities. Scrap code filaments skitter along the crawler's vox array, chanting backwards cant in machine tongue that translates roughly to breath given, breath received, breath calculated into prayer. The binary hymn carries harmonics that make teeth ache and causes instruments to register phantom electromagnetic signatures at 27 Hz frequency. "Data retrieval initiated," the Magos announces, his vox grill crackling with static interference, extracting cogitator cores and personal effects for analysis. Harvel monitors vox channels while maintaining overwatch position near the breach. His equipment registers increasing interference patterns, electromagnetic noise that resolves into fragments of hymns when filtered through standard communication protocols. "Signal degradation increasing," he reports. Multiple ghost channels broadcasting on reserved frequencies. Content appears liturgical in nature. I approach the central pilgrim, a woman whose jaw hangs open to reveal a data wafer embedded in her gum line like a technological tooth. The device pulses with faint bioluminescence, warm to the touch and slick with saliva that should have evaporated hours ago in this desiccated environment. Extraction requires careful pressure to avoid damaging the wafer's delicate circuitry. The moment my fingers make contact with the wafer, the dune outside shudders against prevailing gale, its surface rippling like liquid despite maintaining solid consistency. Ash flows upward in streams that defy gravitational pull, forming temporary peaks that collapse and reform in patterns suggesting architectural blueprints drawn by invisible hands. The crawler itself groans, hull plates shifting with organic complaint. "Hazardous material confirmed," Lysiarch 9 observes, optical mechadendrite focusing on the wafer's surface. This notation contains viral code designed to interface with biological respiratory systems. The medium compensates when removed from host. The Psalms notation covers both sides of the wafer in microscopic script, musical notes interwoven with binary code and snippets of high Gothic prayer. Each note corresponds to specific respiratory patterns, turning breath itself into a form of data processing that shapes particulate matter through collective inhalation. As we prepare tactical withdrawal from the crawler, Havel's voice cuts through environmental static with sharp urgency. "Interrogator adjunct, we have new footprints appearing 9 meters ahead of our position. Tread pattern matches our own boots, correct to individual weight distribution and stride length." The prints emerge from unmarked ash as we watch, each impression forming with deliberate precision exactly 9 meters beyond our current position. Our pattern exactly. My longer stride, Dace's heavier heel, Havel's slight scuff at the toe. The tracks continue in perfect formation beyond visual range, maintaining proper tactical spacing and movement discipline as if something has been studying our approach and now demonstrates its knowledge. "No thermal signatures detected," Dace reports, Helgun tracking the invisible formation. "No movement indicators, but the prints are fresh and deepening under observation." We withdraw by standard numbers, Dace setting order, Havel falling to center, Rhine at my shoulder, Lysiarch bringing rear guard with mechadendrites, sealing the wafer into blessed reliquary vial. The footprints ahead adjust as we move, appearing in triads, then nines, spaced to match our tactical formation. As our team pivots to establish overwatch positions, our shadows finally catch up from their 9-second delay and overshoot our current positions entirely. For one heart-stopping instant, I watch my own darkness step past me, and plant its foot precisely into the pre-existing print 9 meters ahead, settling into the ash impression as if it belongs there, waiting for flesh to follow Shadow's intention. The crawler's vox array crackles with final transmission. Mercy be ninefold repeated in our own voices, broadcast on frequencies we have never used. The pre-echo footprint line led us across undulating waste toward a pilgrim waystone ringed by perfect ash circle, untouched by crosswinds that screamed eastward at 47 kilometers per hour. The circle measured exactly 27 paces across by my stride, its boundary marked not by visible line, but by absolute stillness, where particulate matter refused to cross invisible threshold carved into reality itself. No footprints entered the circle, only tracks left it, radiating away in disciplined files that were ours before we made them, pressed deep into ash that flowed uphill against every law of physics, while maintaining perfect geometric precision around sacred ground that defied atmospheric interference. Perimeter established, Sergeant Dace signalled, her hellgun tracking empty dunes that felt occupied by watching presences. Lasergun's port arms, melter charges read safe, standard breach protocols if geometry shifts. The waystone rose from the circle's centre like blessed marble finger, its surface carved with devotional scripture that shifted between high Gothic and low Gothic as viewing angle changed, words rearranging themselves to accommodate readers' liturgical education. Sacred text flowed like liquid metal, while crosswinds howled overhead without effect on the protected space. Havel monitored Vox channels with increasing concern, his equipment registering phantom transmissions that arrived before broadcast. Auspex logging temperature pulses every 3, 9, and 27 seconds, same cadence as the reverse hymn. Radiation hum maps to the Litany of Mercy played backwards and stretched across impossible time intervals. Confessor Rhine stepped forward with ritual censor, beginning sanctioned litany for nullification of heretical ground consecration. By the Emperor's will, I cleanse this place of shadow and corruption. Let sacred fire burn away all taint that mocks his divine. Mid-verse, his respirator clogged with crystalline beads that extruded from the inhalation valve, like technological rosary. The sacred mask filled with translucent spheres identical to vitrified lungs, discovered in the crawler's dead, each bead warm and pulsing with faint bioluminescence. Rhine gagged, eyes bulging as crystal growth forced its way through blessed filters designed to purify even warp-tainted atmosphere. I ripped the mask free with desperate urgency, ceramic straps snapping under pressure, his mouth packed with gauze-like material that tasted of sanctified oils and blessed metals, spat out in neat coils that arranged themselves on ash in perfect spirals. The extruded rosary chimed against ground like tiny bells, announcing heretical prayer. Malfunction confirmed, Rhine gasped. Breathing resumed, but each exhale now counted itself audibly. 1, 2, 3, pause, 4, 5, 6, pause, 7, 8, 9, pause. The cadence matched no known liturgical pattern yet felt familiar, as childhood prayers learned before understanding their meaning. Magos Lysiarch 9 extended multiple mechadendrites to analyze extruded material, while servo skulls recorded atmospheric impossibilities with increasing urgency. His binary cant translated scrap code embedded in reversed hymn signature, revealing fragments that predated current doctrinal standards by several millennia. Mechanicus processional subroutine embedded in hymnals, he announced, optical sensors focusing on waystone scripture. Ancient program designed for atmospheric manipulation through collective synchronized respiration. But the logic engines contain viral code that interfaces directly with human respiratory systems, transforming breath into computational substrate. The rhythmic motif returned as triple knock beneath ash layer, something tapping against underside of solid ground with patient persistence. The sound carried through ceramite boot soles as physical vibration. 3 quick taps followed by pause, repeated in patterns that mirrored reversed Litany of Mercy, echoing across Vox channels at exactly 27-second intervals. Environmental sensory anchors shifted as we examined the perimeter. Frost continued forming on exposed equipment, while ash grew hot enough to scald through ceramite gloves, temperature contradictions that instruments could not reconcile. The air tasted of coins and spent energy cells, dry enough to crack lips, yet somehow carrying scent of blessed incense that should not exist in desiccated atmosphere. I tested the circle's boundary by extending one boot across invisible threshold. The moment ceramite touched sacred ground, ash rose around my foot like liquid mercury, warm and almost tender in its embrace. Particles clung to boot leather with organic affection, forming patterns that suggested half-remembered faces of saints whose names had been forgotten by official doctrine. "The ground remembers prayers," Rhine whispered, voice tight with suppressed terror. "Every footstep, every breath, every word spoken in sacred places. This circle collects devotion and transforms it into something else entirely." The sensation carried comfort and terror in equal measure. Ash that welcomed contact while maintaining temperatures sufficient to melt flesh from bone. Each grain seemed individually aware of my presence, responding to heartbeat and respiration with delicate precision that spoke of intelligence vast beyond human comprehension. Negative space bloomed around the ash circle like cathedral silence. No carrion birds wheeled overhead. No insects buzzed through particle-laden air. No echo returned from our movements, as if the dunes absorbed sound and digested it into computational prayer that fed something patient and calculating beneath our feet. The triple knocks grew stronger, more insistent, matching Rhine's involuntary 9-count breathing with precision that suggested intimate knowledge of human physiology. Each percussion felt like something testing structural integrity from below, seeking weakness or invitation to emerge from whatever hollow space existed beneath the ash sea. Our shadows continued lagging 9 seconds behind movement, but now they pointed toward Waystone regardless of light source position, as if darkness itself had learned to navigate by different principles than illumination in this place where breath became prayer, and prayer became substrate for reshaping reality. The perfect circle broke without warning or external force, hairline cracks racing away from our position like fissures in thawing river. Lines carved themselves through warm ash into colder crust below, releasing breath steam that fogged our lenses and left crystalline residue when it dried. The fractures did not spread randomly. Instead, they converged with geometric precision, tracing vast 9-fold sigil around our entire formation. Each line exactly the same width and depth, carved by invisible hands that worked with architectural certainty to complete pattern that had waited centuries for proper witnesses. The sigil's geometry enclosed around us with intimacy of cinched belt, ash settling into newly formed grooves with organic satisfaction. Everything waited, particulate matter hovering in perfect stillness, while crosswinds howled overhead without effect on sacred mathematics etched into desert floor. Wind died abruptly. Sound dropped into well of expectant silence. The triple interval ping fell quiet, not paused but absorbed, swallowed mid-pulse by geometry that existed only when observed directly by those whose breath could complete its intended function. Ash waited for the next breath to complete pattern, and I realized with creeping horror that the count inside me had already begun. 3, 9, 27. The sigil listened for the 9th exhale to unlock whatever patient intelligence calculated beneath Vandium Theta's ash-covered surface, transforming human respiration into keys for doors that should never open. The ash gale struck like wet blanket of knives, transforming silent desert into maelstrom of particulate fury, driven by crosswinds that screamed with voices almost human in their distress. Visibility collapsed to arm's length as atmospheric pressure shifted without meteorological logic, creating grey void where direction became theoretical concept and breathing required deliberate effort against air thick enough to taste copper and spent energy cells. The storm ate impact noise with hungry precision. Footsteps, equipment rattles, even heartbeats vanished into acoustic void, yet whispered our names back in reverse syllable order through respirator filters. "Cerc Nireves," the gale murmured, Ekad Aram, Leva Somar. Our identities spoken backwards by wind that had learned human speech from sources unknown and disturbing, each syllable delivered with chilling precision directly into voxcoms, bypassing blessed filters designed to purify even warp-tainted atmosphere. "Rope-tethered formation," Sergeant Dace ordered through microbead, her voice cutting atmospheric interference with professional calm that belied growing concern in tactical assessments. "Standard storm protocols. Watch for pressure drops and electromagnetic anomalies." Blessed climbing rope connected our team in series. Dace at point, myself second, Confessor Rhine third, Vox Trooper Havel fourth, Magos Lysiarch 9 anchoring rear position with mechadendrites extended against crosswinds that changed direction without atmospheric warning. The lifeline trembled with each gust, transmitting vibrations that felt organic rather than meteorological, as if something vast breathed through particulate suspension. Lumen flares ignited automatically, blessed promethium burning with sacred light that refracted through ground glass suspended in air, creating prismatic halos that hurt to contemplate directly. Each photon struggled through particulate soup, carrying illumination exactly 3 meters before dying in darkness that swallowed brightness like hungry mouth feeding on hope itself. Through howling grey, a Titan-tall silhouette loomed against storm wall, massive humanoid form with arms outstretched in attitude of benediction or crucifixion, visible for exactly 9 heartbeats before vanishing into particulate void. The apparition left no footprints, cast no shadow, registered on no Auspex array, yet its presence created rising ear pressure that made teeth ache and caused instruments to whine with harmonic feedback at 27 Hz frequency. "Contact front," Dace reported, Hellgun tracking empty air where impossible figure had stood. No thermal signature detected, no movement indicators, but something displaced atmosphere sufficient to create measurable pressure wave. The sense of vast intelligence observing grew stronger as visibility decreased. Something patient and calculating watched from within particulate suspension, studying our movements and respiratory patterns with attention that felt intimate and predatory simultaneously. Each breath provided data for analysis. Each heartbeat contributed to computational matrix that transformed human biology into substrate for purposes unknown, but undoubtedly heretical. We stumbled through ash soup toward Lee Shelter, boots sinking into particulate matter that clung with organic persistence while surface temperature readings fluctuated between sub-zero atmospheric measurements and subsurface heat sufficient to melt ceramite. Each step required effort against suction that felt deliberate, as if ground itself attempted to slow progress through storm space where normal physics had suspended operations. Confessor Rhine whispered silent catechism, lips moving in prescribed patterns while fingers spelled litanies across blessed reliquaries at his breast. No sound emerged from his throat, but ash stirred in response to unspoken prayers, forming brief spirals around his boots that suggested cathedral incense rising toward vaulted ceiling, existing only in memory and desperate hope. We found shelter under Dune's windward face, where ash had flowed uphill against gravitational pull and frozen mid-cascade, forming wave of grey glass 30 meters high that blocked crosswinds while creating acoustic pocket where whispered communication became possible. The frozen wave contained embedded votive plaques, pilgrimage tokens, sacred scrolls pressed into translucent matrix like insects trapped in amber, each positioned at precise depths in triplicate rows, 9 to a column. Environmental horror intensified as storm pressure mounted. Frost formed on respirator valves, despite subsurface temperatures registering 127 degrees Celsius. The contradiction defied thermodynamic law while creating physical discomfort that made breathing conscious effort rather than autonomic function. Each inhalation required deliberate decision. Each exhalation counted itself in patterns matching reversed hymnal structure embedded in atmospheric interference. Military discipline maintained formation despite psychological pressure that increased with atmospheric density. Standard tactical procedures provided framework for decision-making when sensory input challenged sanity. blessed routine of advance halt watch creating rhythm that countered Storm's attempt to impose alien cadence on human activity. Through ground glass haze, shapes moved with deliberate purpose. Humanoid figures walking against crosswinds without being affected by particulate matter that should have stripped flesh from bone. The silhouettes maintained perfect formation spacing while covering ground at inhuman speed. Their movements synchronized to triple interval pulse, echoing through storm space at exactly 27-second intervals. Religious diction edged into communications as environmental pressure mounted. Sacred phrases emerged unbidden from memory. Childhood prayers learned before understanding their meaning. Litanies that provided psychological anchor against storm space, where reality operated by principles. Imperial doctrine acknowledged impossible, yet undeniably present. The magos extended multiple mechadendrites to sample atmospheric composition, while servo skulls recorded impossibilities that challenged fundamental understanding of matter and energy relationships. His binary Kant bled into ground static, machine prayers absorbed by particulate matter that responded to sacred mathematics with precision suggesting vast intelligence, calculating through collective grain movement. Blue filaments crawled over the frozen wave, attempting to lace our equipment together with electromagnetic threads that snapped like spider silk against insulated palms. The taste of ozone swelled hot and egg-sour, making teeth ring with harmonic resonance. We had minutes before the supercell's full fury arrived, and the waste pulled breath like lung that intended never to exhale. Wind lulled abruptly, creating acoustic pocket where whispered words carried impossible distances. In sudden calm, particulate matter hung suspended like cathedral dust, waiting for prayer to give it purpose. The triple interval ping that had haunted Vox channels fell silent, replaced by pressure that tried to time our hearts to alien rhythm. Beneath Havel's feet, where solid ground had existed moments before, a hatch yawned open, circular aperture in earth revealing darkness that exhaled hot, stale air in measured increments. Each breath from underground chamber carried scent of blessed incense mixed with ozone and copper. Atmosphere speaking of vast enclosed space where something patient had been waiting for proper witnesses to complete pattern requiring human respiratory participation. Breach in deck, Havel reported, voice carrying new note of terror as he stared into darkness that breathed with organic rhythm. Aperture measures exactly 3 meters diameter, exhalation pattern consistent with massive lung capacity operating on 9-count cycle. The mouth in earth continued breathing, each exhalation warm enough to fog lenses while creating pressure waves that made equipment whine with feedback. Something vast and patient waited below, counting breaths in increments of 9, preparing to surface when atmospheric conditions and human presence aligned with computational requirements that transformed devotion into doorway for whatever. Calculated beneath Vandium Theta's ash-covered surface, descent into the Earth's mouth required blessed climbing rope and Dace's count. 9 beats between each rappel order, boots feeling for rungs carved by hands that understood architecture as prayer. Hot, stale air rose in measured increments. Exhalations that fogged lenses and left sweet metal taste coating the back of tongues, while frost accreted along respirator valves despite subsurface temperatures that registered 129 degrees Celsius through ceramite boot soles. The shaft opened into ossuary, carved by ash flow across millennia, walls compacted from bone dust that glimmered pearl-like in lumen illumination while creating acoustic properties that transformed footsteps into whispered prayers echoing through corridors predating imperial settlement. Steps descended in ritual cadence. 27 down, landing, 27 more. Each tier worn smooth by countless pilgrim feet and carved to precise depth that encouraged specific stride length matching respiratory rhythm embedded in architectural design. Formation 2, maintain spacing, Sergeant Dace ordered through microbead, her hellgun tracking shadows that moved independently of light sources. 9 meters between positions, no litany unless ordered. Blood rust flecked railings in triadic patterns. 3 drops, pause, 3 drops, pause, 3 drops, staining blessed metal with organic residue that remained warm despite atmospheric readings approaching absolute zero at depths where permafrost should have claimed every surface. The contradiction scraped consciousness like physical pressure, environmental impossibility that instruments struggled to quantify while human nervous systems registered distress through autonomic responses. Recent pilgrims discovered at first landing their bodies arranged with architectural precision serving purposes beyond devotional display. Faces rotated inward toward corridor centerline, jaws unhinged to accommodate tongues filamented into ash strings, leading deeper like guy lines supporting invisible weight suspended above stairwell void. Each filament stretched exactly 3 meters in length, woven with microscopic scripture requiring magnification to read. High Gothic prayers mixed with binary cant and symbols predating imperial iconography. The body horror escalated beyond clinical observation into intimate violation. Calcified alveoli, fused sternums, windpipes transformed to crystalline chains that caught grey light and refracted it through translucent organs. Where ribs once protected soft tissue, bead chains of vitrified lung matter threaded along bronchi, each sphere fused to the next, as if final exhalation had cooled to glass and refused to leave the body. By the throne, Confessor Rhine whispered, sensor swinging in prescribed arcs. They remain attached to something that still breathes. The tongue cords thrummed to our respiratory patterns, vibrating in sympathy with cadence our bodies could not refuse. Each breath provided data for analysis. Each heartbeat contributed to computational matrix that transformed human biology into substrate for purposes predating current doctrinal understanding, yet bearing familiar signatures of devotional architecture. Side chapel opened at landing 17, carved from stained sand that filtered grey light into spectrum revealing hidden scripture along wall surfaces. Central altar supported humming reliquary of unfamiliar design. Glass skin warm despite sub-zero ambient temperature, measuring exactly 27 centimeters in height and width, etched with 9 concentric circles pulsing with bioluminescence, synchronized to human heartbeat when observed directly. 9th phylactery, Margos Lysiarch 9 announced, optical mechadendrites focusing on reliquary surface, while servo skulls recorded atmospheric impossibilities. Pre-imperial relic designed as key seed to processional arc technology, classification Hereticus Majoris by current doctrine, yet bearing authentic sacred seals predating prescription orders. The reliquary's warmth penetrated blessed ceramite gloves, creating sensation of life pulsing beneath glass skin, while harmonic vibrations traveled through bone structure directly into nervous system. Each pulse carried information, fragments of binary cant mixed with organic sensory data bypassing conscious thought, to interface with autonomic functions, controlling respiration and cardiac rhythm. Sacred seals authentic, Rhine reported, voice tight with suppressed terror. Pre-imperial provenance confirmed, but blessing patterns contain elements challenging current doctrinal interpretation. This relic serves computational purposes disguised as devotional focus. Taking the 9th phylactery from altar caused immediate environmental response throughout ossuary structure. Ash embedded in stair surfaces pulsed like heartbeat, each grain synchronized to reliquary's bioluminescent rhythm while creating percussion traveling through bone dust walls as physical vibration. The sound carried harmonic frequencies making teeth ache and causing instruments to register phantom electromagnetic signatures at precisely 27 Hz. Negative space dominated chapel architecture. Altars without icons, empty saint niches, hollow spaces shaped to accommodate specific human anatomical measurements, calculated to precise tolerances, suggesting intimate knowledge of pilgrimage demographics across multiple generations. The absence pressed like hands on neck, liturgy of vacancy that transformed whispered prayers into computational substrate. Environmental anchors shifted with increasing depth. Temperature readings dropped toward absolute zero, while ash surfaces grew hot enough to scald through blessed ceramite, contradictions that challenged thermodynamic law while creating physical discomfort making breathing conscious effort rather than autonomic function. The air carried scent of blessed incense mixed with ozone and copper, atmosphere speaking of vast enclosed spaces where something patient calculated through collective prayer. At Landing 27, hidden data ports sparked alive beneath Pilgrim's ribcage. Technological interface fused to organic tissue through heat and chemical reaction. The device pulsed with sickly bioluminescence, warm to touch and slick with fluids that should have evaporated in desiccated environment, yet remained viable for purposes requiring biological compatibility with ancient technology. I pressed the 9th phylactery to interface port. The plate awakened with organic psi, throwing pale light along spinal column and corded tongue threads leading into darkness. Hololithic projection bloomed in ash-choked air, lattice of tunnels beneath wastes showing 9 nodes arranged in geometric pattern, each position marked with coordinates tracing route toward final destination, labeled in High Gothic script. The map pulsed with reliquaries rhythm, revealing processional arcs intended path through subterranean passages, connecting sacred sites across Vandium Theta's eastern hemisphere. Each node corresponded to specific atmospheric conditions and population density requirements, creating network designed to channel collective human respiration into computational matrix reshaping matter, according to principles challenging imperial understanding of physics and theology. Route confirmed, Lysiarch 9 observed, mechadendrites interfacing with dataport. 9 stations arranged in processional pattern. Each requires specific number of human participants breathing in synchronized cadence to activate dormant technology embedded in ossuary infrastructure. The projection flickered, died, sparked back to life, showing current position marked as Node 5 of 9. Progress toward final destination measured in respiratory cycles rather than distance, each breath bringing team closer to whatever patient intelligence waited at coordinates where processional arc's ultimate purpose would be revealed through human participation in computational prayer, transforming devotion into doorway. As we secured the phylactery and prepared tactical withdrawal, the tongue cords vibrated together like strings across hollow body. The stairs pulse intensified, answered by reliquary's warm hum, while something beneath wastes acknowledged our presence with triple knock that shuddered through bone dust walls. Environmental pressure mounted as we began ascent toward Node 4, ash responding to synchronized breathing with deliberate precision, while temperature contradictions intensified. The 9th phylactery's warmth spread through blessed containment, creating sensation of vast intelligence, calculating through sacred medium, transforming human biology into substrate for purposes that would be revealed at the last breath, where computational prayer waited to unlock whatever patient intelligence had been calculating beneath Vandium Theta's ash-covered surface for millennia beyond imperial memory. Advance toward Node 4 operated under new tactical doctrine learned through necessity. Spoken litanies triggered ash flow with immediate, predatory response. Each syllable caused particulate matter to rise like grey mercury seeking blessed metal, pouring towards sound sources with liquid precision that bypassed respirator seals and sought entry through any available aperture. Silence, conversely, calmed the responsive medium into temporary dormancy, allowing passage through corridors where breath itself had become weapon requiring careful deployment. Hand sign and clipped cant only, Sergeant Dace ordered through final microbed transmission before switching to blessed tactical signals, her fingers spelling instructions in battle cant learned in Schola Progenium, where silence meant survival against enemies who hunted through acoustic signature. Vox discipline absolute. Sound draws immediate response. Confessor Rhine fought visible battle against doctrinal compulsion to speak prayers aloud, throat pulsing in 9-count rhythm matching reliquary's bioluminescent cadence while lips moved in silent litanies that stirred ash at his feet despite absence of vocalization. Each suppressed word created physical tension in jaw muscles, religious conditioning warring against tactical necessity, in struggle between devotion and survival, that transformed sacred duty into liability requiring conscious override of autonomic response. Military rhythm maintained formation, despite psychological pressure, that mounted with each step toward coordinates marking Node 4's position beneath ash-covered surface. Advance 9 paces, halt, watch arcs, advance 9 more, creating tactical cadence that countered particulate intelligence's attempt to impose alien synchronization on human activity through environmental manipulation that challenged fundamental understanding of matter and consciousness. Environmental shift intensified as we penetrated deeper into responsive medium that operated by principles challenging Imperial doctrine. Temperature readings dropped toward absolute zero while ash surfaces radiated heat sufficient to melt ceramite through blessed gloves. Contradiction that defied thermodynamic law while creating sensation of vast organ breathing through ground-level medium. The air hummed with harmonic frequencies, making teeth ache and causing instruments to register phantom electromagnetic signatures synchronized to human cardiac rhythm. Magos Lesiarch 9 acknowledged through encrypted channel what tactical assessment had suspected since deployment. His designation suffix 9 bore significance beyond administrative convenience. The processional arc represented omniscient-sanctioned technology, later prescribed for reasons buried in classified archives, requiring inquisitorial clearance and computational blessing from Mars itself for recovery operations. Confession required, he transmitted through binary cant mixing with organic distress patterns. Processional technology predates current doctrinal restrictions by 3 millennia. My presence indicates prior knowledge of heretical systems requiring specialized interface protocols. Primary directive: recover arc logic engines, regardless of tactical cost or personnel expenditure. The admission carried weight of revelation and betrayal simultaneously. Team composition had been selected for specific capabilities rather than tactical requirements, each member bringing expertise necessary for interaction with technology that transformed human biology into computational substrate through synchronized respiration and devotional focus, channeled through ancient sacred mathematics. Microhazard materialized as Vox Trooper Havel involuntarily breathed phrase through communication array. Mercy be ninefold. Words emerging without conscious intention, while his throat pulsed to reliquary's rhythm. Ash responded immediately, rising like solvent around his position, pouring into hood and respirator with organic precision that bypassed blessed filters designed to purify even warp-tainted atmosphere. "Breach! Breach!" Dace signaled, lunging forward to rip Trooper free from particular embrace that clung with deliberate intimacy while maintaining temperatures sufficient to strip flesh from bone. The extraction left perfect grey faceprint in ash, negative space retaining Havel's expression of terror with photographic precision, mouth open in silent scream, while eyes stared with understanding of forces beyond human comprehension. The trooper's faceprint remained warm despite sub-zero atmospheric readings, ash retaining thermal signature and electromagnetic activity suggesting preservation of biological information through medium that operated as vast neural network, calculating through collective grain interaction. Each particle seemed individually aware of extracted data, processing sensory information for purposes requiring biological compatibility with ancient computational systems. We reached iron door welded shut with glass that pulsed with bioluminescence, synchronized to reliquary's rhythm, surface marked with 9 concentric circles etched to precise depth, suggesting architectural significance beyond decorative purpose. The symbols created harmonic vibrations traveling through metal structure into bone and nervous system, bypassing conscious thought to interface with autonomic functions controlling respiration and cardiac rhythm. Religious diction layered through technical vocabulary as environmental pressure mounted. Sacred phrases emerged unbidden from memory. Childhood prayers learned before understanding their meaning, litanies providing psychological anchor against particulate intelligence that studied our approach with attention, suggesting vast calculating consciousness operating through collective movement across planetary surface. Body horror elements accumulated as team members exhibited increasing synchronization despite technical countermeasures. Respiratory patterns aligned to 3 to 927 cadence regardless of conscious effort to maintain individual rhythm, hearts beating in harmony, while throat muscles contracted in patterns matching reversed hymnal structure embedded in atmospheric interference that grew stronger with proximity to Node 4. Lysiarch 9 extended mechadendrite toward Door's central sigil, ninth phylactery pulsing with increased intensity as proximity to compatible technology triggered response protocols embedded in ancient programming that predated Imperial understanding of sacred mathematics. The relic's warmth penetrated blessed ceramite, creating sensation of life pulsing beneath glass skin while transmitting information directly into nervous system. Threshold breach initiated, the magos announced through microbead, optical sensors recording atmospheric impossibilities while servoskulls catalogued environmental data, challenging fundamental principles of physics and theology. Door exhibits organic integration with technological systems. Passage requires biological authentication keyed to specific respiratory patterns. He pressed relic to central circle. The glass softened like flesh beneath sacred pressure, 9 rings dilating like irises drinking light, while vents opened like pores breathing with organic rhythm. Warmth bled through aperture, humid animal breath carrying scent of blessed incense mixed with ozone and copper, atmosphere speaking of vast enclosed spaces where something patient had been calculating through collective prayer. The corridor beyond exhaled pressure wave matching our heartbeats in perfect synchronization. 1 to 1, then 1 to 3, then 1 to 9, while something inhaled with interest from depths where computational prayer waited to transform human biology into substrate for purposes that would be revealed at the last breath, where ancient intelligence had been preparing sacred mathematics to unlock whatever patient consciousness calculated beneath Vandium Theta's ash-covered surface, through millennia of faithful breath. We emerged through the breathing aperture into the basilicum of last breath, cathedral ship half swallowed by ash wastes like titanic whale beached on grey shore. Its Gothic spine cracked open to reveal vaulted nave, where crosswinds played massive pipe organs, producing reverse hymn whose melody we recognized from childhood prayers, yet wished we could forget entirely. The sacred vessel stretched 300 meters from prow to stern, architecture fusing blessed stone with ash glass in hybrid construction that challenged engineering understanding while maintaining devotional purpose through environmental impossibility. Wind entered through shattered stained glass windows, flowing along organ pipes with deliberate precision that transformed atmospheric pressure into musical notation, embedded with sacred mathematics. Each note corresponded to specific respiratory patterns, turning collective breath into computational substrate that shaped particulate matter according to principles predating imperial doctrine, yet bearing authentic sacred seals, demanding theological consideration despite heretical application. Formation Diamond, maintain visual contact, Sergeant Dace signaled through blessed handcant, her hellgun tracking shadows that moved independently of illumination sources, while environmental pressure mounted with each step deeper into cathedral space, where silence carried accumulated weight of prayer across millennia, of faithful devotion transformed into computational process. The nave filled with sand-glass figures arranged in stations of breath, pilgrims vitrified mid-prayer in 9 distinct poses, representing complete respiratory cycle from initial inhalation through retention to final exhalation. 9 aisles, 9 poses, 9 figures per row extending toward altar space, where massive bellows engine dominated sacred architecture with organic mechanisms challenging understanding of mechanical and biological system integration, operating through principles requiring human interface. Each glass pilgrim retained individual expression of devotion or terror, faces captured at transformation moment when breath became prayer, and prayer became substrate for computational process-preserving consciousness within crystalline matrix. Their positions suggested choreographed ritual requiring specific timing and anatomical positioning to achieve collective respiratory synchronization, necessary for sacred mathematics embedded in cathedral architecture, predating current doctrinal understanding. The altar was no altar, but bellows engine, possessing 9 chambers, arranged in circular pattern. leather surfaces flexing, without mechanical drivers, while ash responded like living lung tissue to pressure changes created by autonomous breathing cycle. Each chamber measured exactly 3 meters diameter, carved with devotional scripture, mixing high Gothic prayers with binary cant and symbols, predating imperial iconography, yet bearing authentic blessed seals, requiring inquisitorial consideration. Environmental cold deepened, while ozone taste intensified. Metallic flavor coating tongue and throat, with sensation of breathing liquid copper, while frost formed on respirator valves, despite subsurface temperatures registering 132 degrees Celsius through ceramite boot soles. The contradictions scraped consciousness like physical pressure, thermal impossibility challenging thermodynamic law, while creating discomfort, making each breath conscious decision rather than autonomic function. Mechanicus liturgy clashed with ministorum rites as environmental pressure forced doctrinal consideration of technology, transforming devotional practice into computational process. Words became dangerous in atmosphere responsive to acoustic vibration, requiring hand-sign communication while throat. Muscles contracted involuntarily to rhythm-matching bellows engine cycle, operating through principles challenging fundamental understanding of sacred and profane system integration. On third pew near transept crossing, Deathwatch pauldron lay half buried in ash, flowing like mercury around blessed ceramite. The armor fragment bore acid etching from atmospheric exposure, surface pitted with microscopic holes whistling when crosswinds passed through blessed ceramite, creating harmonic frequencies making teeth ache while causing instruments to register phantom electromagnetic signatures. Where Xenos sigil had once been bonded, someone scored 9 knife marks arranged in ritual pattern, grooves filled with prayer wax that pulsed with bioluminescence synchronized to human heartbeat. Magos Lysiarch 9 extracted cogitator core from altar's central processing unit. Blessed data storage revealing logs mentioning Saint of Breath, enthroned to compute atmospheric disturbances through collective respiration channeled into sacred mathematics, reshaping matter according to principles requiring biological interface with ancient technology. The entries described machine ritual using breath as offering and processor simultaneously. Devotional practice transformed into computational process through environmental manipulation, predating current imperial understanding. Partial truth revealed through classified documentation. Processional technology designed to solve atmospheric control through massized prayer, breath as computation medium channeled through collective synchronization, transforming human biology into substrate for reshaping planetary weather patterns. During Old Night, Imperium entity infiltrated sacred cant, teaching arc logic engines to hunt breath patterns while shaping ash into sacred circuit connecting devotional sites across subsector through computational prayer. Cosmic abstraction intensified as sense of vast intelligence, calculating through human breath patterns, grew stronger with proximity to altar space. Something patient and immeasurable observed through particulate medium, studying respiratory synchronization with attention, suggesting intimate knowledge of human physiology, combined with computational capacity, exceeding imperial understanding of artificial intelligence system integration with biological processes operating through principles challenging theological doctrine. Mechanicus liturgy clashed with ministorum rites as environmental pressure forced doctrinal consideration of technology, transforming devotional practice into computational process. Words became dangerous in atmosphere responsive to acoustic vibration, requiring hand-sign communication, while throat muscles contracted involuntarily to rhythm-matching bellows engine cycle, operating through principles challenging fundamental understanding of sacred and profane system integration. On third pew, near transept crossing, Deathwatch pauldron lay half buried in ash flowing like mercury around blessed ceramite. The armor fragment bore acid etching from atmospheric exposure, surface pitted with microscopic holes whistling when crosswinds passed through blessed ceramite, creating harmonic frequencies making teeth ache while causing instruments to register phantom electromagnetic signatures. Where Xenos sigil had once been bonded, Someone scored 9 knife marks arranged in ritual pattern, grooves filled with prayer wax that pulsed with bioluminescence synchronized to human heartbeat. Margos Lysiarch 9 extracted cogitator core from altar's central processing unit. Blessed data storage revealing logs mentioning saint of breath enthroned to compute atmospheric disturbances through collective respiration, channeled into sacred mathematics reshaping matter, according to principles requiring biological interface with ancient technology. The entries described machine ritual using breath as offering and processor simultaneously, devotional practice transformed into computational process through environmental manipulation, predating current imperial understanding. Partial truth revealed through classified documentation, processional technology designed to solve atmospheric control through massized prayer, breath as computation medium channeled through collective synchronization, transforming human biology into substrate for reshaping planetary weather patterns. During Old Night, Empyrean entity infiltrated sacred cant, teaching arc logic engines to hunt breath patterns while shaping ash into sacred circuit connecting devotional sites across subsector through computational prayer. Cosmic abstraction intensified, a sense of vast intelligence calculating through human breath patterns grew stronger with proximity to altar space. Something patient and immeasurable, observed through particulate medium, studying respiratory synchronization with attention suggesting intimate knowledge of human physiology, combined with computational capacity exceeding imperial understanding of artificial intelligence system. Integration, with biological processes operating through principles challenging theological doctrine. Body horror elements escalated as team members exhibited increasing biological integration with cathedral systems, despite conscious resistance. Respiratory patterns synchronized regardless of technical countermeasures, hearts beating in perfect harmony, while throat muscles contracted involuntarily to rhythm-matching bellows engine cycle. Each breath provided data for analysis. Each heartbeat contributed to computational matrix transforming human biology into substrate for purposes approaching revelation through sacred mathematics. As we approached altar space, where ninth phylactery resonated with increasing intensity, environmental pressure reached threshold, requiring immediate tactical decision. Subsystem resonance spread beyond cathedral boundaries into Hive Vox network, contaminating communication arrays with reversed hymnal structure, transforming routine transmissions into computational prayer, feeding whatever patient intelligence calculated beneath Vandium Theta's ash-covered surface through millennia of faithful breath. The 9 shadow mouths materialized along bellows engine chambers, circular apertures, breathing in rhythm with mechanical cycle, while exhaling warm, humid air, carrying scent of blessed incense, mixed with ozone and copper. Each mouth measured exactly 27 centimeters diameter, lips formed from ash glass pulsing with bioluminescence, synchronized to human heartbeat, when observed directly, creating sensation of vast intelligence focused entirely on our presence. Religious motif returned with chilling revelation as mercy be ninefold emerged through Binharic cant, rather than ecclesiarchal liturgy, suggesting technological origin for phrase-haunting Vox channels since deployment. The prayer operated as program rather than devotion, binary code disguised as sacred language, while interfacing with human respiratory systems to achieve collective synchronization necessary for ancient computational process requiring biological authentication. The 9 shadow mouths exhaled simultaneously, speaking my true birth name in perfect mimicry of my own voice. Syllables never shared with team members, identity known only to inquisitorial archives and genetic records sealed under highest classification. The sound carried across cathedral space with harmonic resonance bypassing conscious thought to interface directly with nervous system, creating sensation of vast intelligence, studying my approach through accumulated breath patterns across deployment duration. Severin crest, the mouths whispered in unison, each syllable synchronized to heartbeat while ash stirred in response to acoustic signature. The 9th breath awaits completion at the throne prepared. The saint of breath extends invitation to computational prayer. Your respiration completes the pattern calculated across centuries of faithful devotion. The bellows engine flexed with organic satisfaction, 9 chambers opening like irises drinking light, while something vast and patient acknowledged our presence through collective exhalation, fogging lenses and creating pressure waves making equipment whine with feedback. The cathedral breathed with anticipation, waiting for human participation in computational prayer that would transform devotion into doorway for whatever ancient intelligence had been calculating sacred mathematics beneath ash-covered surface, since before Imperial memory began its faithful count. Sacristy access via phylactery revealed sealed logs that required inquisitorial clearance and computational blessing from Mars itself, data vaults buried beneath 3 millennia of doctrinal revision and theological censure. The chamber sealed behind us with organic sigh, cutting nave's reversed hymnal to muffled pressure hum at 27 Hz frequency, steady as pulse, patient as thirst, intimate, as breath counted in increments that challenged autonomic function through environmental manipulation. The air thickened to coin metal taste coating tongue and throat, dry enough to turn every swallow into conscious litany, while frost formed on blessed equipment despite subsurface temperatures registering 134 degrees Celsius through ceramite boot soles. Environmental contradictions scraped consciousness like physical pressure, thermal impossibility that defied understanding while creating sensation of breathing liquid copper through respirators struggling against atmospheric density approaching plasma threshold. Magos Lysiarch 9 extended multiple mechadendrites toward ambered console, whose saint face mask had slumped into puddle of glass, servo skulls hovering like mechanical cherubim, while recording atmospheric impossibilities that challenged fundamental understanding of blessed technology. His binary cant mixed with organic distress patterns as seal circuits emerged from ash layers, revealing sigils of Mars intertwined with wards of the Ministorum in braided wire, suggesting heresy and sanctity married through necessity. Exocatechism subarchive accessed, he announced through Vox Grill, crackling with static interference. Designation, 9th problem. Weather control heresy, predating current doctrinal restrictions by 3 millennia. Atmospheric control through massized prayer, breath, as computation medium channeled through collective synchronization. The screens awakened with processional script unfurling like inhalation from below, weather maps rendered as devotional diagrams, choirs plotted like intake fans, respiration graphs overlaying topographies of ash jet eruptions across planetary surface. Preface appeared bearing red wax seals intact despite centuries, glyphs written in Martian high cant beneath heading carrying Imperial cipher that made recognition inevitable despite desperate hope for misidentification. My Inquisitor's seal burned through accumulated dust like slow ember of accusation and predetermined fate. The 9th problem demanded atmospheric control through human respiratory substrate. During Old Night, Vandium Theta's mantle belched particulate rivers, choking cities and quenching suns at noon, while isolated populations developed survival technologies bypassing standard Imperial doctrine. The Mechanicus designed solution that wasn't machine alone, but congregation. Turn breath into computation, entrain planetary atmosphere with human cadence, build processional arc connecting 9 nodes through 9-fold liturgy making world itself hear collective prayer. Heralded as innovation, prescribed as apostasy, Lysiarch observed, voice carrying new note of reverence mixed with technological hunger. Arc was shelved, then buried, but knowledge was preserved for recovery when necessity demanded solutions beyond orthodox parameters. My orders supersede tactical considerations, retrieve exocatechism modules at any cost, personnel expenditure authorized by highest classification. Confessor Ryan whispered silent contrition, lips moving in prescribed patterns while hands signed sacred mathematics across blessed reliquaries. His position emphasized theological necessity despite heretical implications. Imperial duty requiring completion of sacred mission, regardless of personal cost or doctrinal contradiction. The computational prayer represented test of faith demanding human participation to achieve resolution between blessed technology and Imperium contamination. I found directive lodged between sub-archives like knife in missile pages. Ghost ink, readable only under lumens set to 9% output, revealing Inquisitor's hand through orders predating deployment by 6 months. Instructions to Magos detailed recovery protocols, archival procedures, security measures for keybearer designated not as priest or saint, but pattern bearer, whose biological signature provided authentication for ancient computational systems. The next file opened without touch, displaying my name with sigils and records spanning birthroom data through Scholar Medicals, where respiratory patterns were catalogued with meticulous precision. Graph of my breathing, neonate through adolescence, overlaid processional arc unlock sequence with insolent perfection of relic shown to desperate supplicant, each inhalation and exhalation matching sacred mathematics, embedded in technology predating imperial understanding. Breath as cipher, chest as passphrase, Lysiarch murmured with appreciation for craftsmanship spanning millennia. Phylactery sought you as much as you sought it. Biological authentication keyed to specific respiratory signature, recorded at birth and preserved through inquisitorial archives for deployment when circumstances demanded activation. Sergeant Dace's hellgun muzzle tracked between Magos and myself, her professional assessment weighing personnel survival against mission parameters, expanding beyond original briefing scope. Extraction protocols recommend immediate withdrawal. Storms closing tactical windows. We have 37 minutes before atmospheric escape routes become non-viable. This deployment was trap from initiation. The revelation crystallized with bureaucratic precision. During Old Night heresy, Imperium entity had infiltrated Ark's sacred cant, teaching logic engines to transform atmospheric control into feeding mechanism. Collective human respiration became substrate for vast intelligence, calculating through planetary ash medium. Devotional practice corrupted into computational process, serving patient consciousness that had been waiting centuries for proper biological authentication to complete ancient programming. Environmental pressure mounted as air density approached critical threshold, requiring conscious effort for each breath, while religious motif returned through Binharic cant rather than ecclesiarchal liturgy. Mercy be ninefold emerged, as pure machine tongue, binary code disguised as sacred language interfacing with human respiratory systems to achieve synchronization necessary for unlock sequence, requiring biological compatibility with corrupted technology. Body horror elements escalated as team members exhibited increasing integration with cathedral systems despite technical countermeasures. Respiratory patterns synchronized regardless of conscious resistance, hearts beating in harmony, matching bellows engine cycle, while throat muscles contracted involuntarily to rhythm embedded in atmospheric interference growing stronger with proximity to revelation threshold. In sacristy's deepest vault, private message from Inquisitor emerged bearing authentic seals and timestamp predating deployment, revealing final directive hidden beneath layers of classified authorization. The text appeared on multiple screens simultaneously, ensuring complete team awareness of tactical parameters realigned around containment rather than recovery operations. Rhine discovered encrypted coda meant only for Confessor's eyes, his trembling fingers bringing message's final line to prominence, while environmental pressure reached threshold requiring immediate decision between planetary survival and personal expendability. The words glowed like coal against ash-darkened screen, carrying weight of predetermined sacrifice and imperial necessity. When Severin exhales the 9th, the directive read with clinical precision, seal the arc through any means necessary. Computational prayer must not achieve completion. Pattern bearer expendable upon authentication sequence initiation. The cathedral breathed with anticipation, while 9 shadow mouths opened like irises drinking light, bellows engine flexing with organic satisfaction as atmospheric pressure mounted toward threshold where sacred mathematics would transform devotion into doorway for whatever ancient intelligence had been calculating beneath ash-covered surface since before Imperial memory began its faithful count. Team fractures materialized as duty warred with survival instinct, each member understanding their role in ritual spanning millennia of patient preparation for moment when human breath would unlock door that should never open. Tension fractured team cohesion like ceramite under melter fire. Professional discipline cracking along fault lines carved by revelation that deployment parameters had shifted from recovery to containment. The Inquisitor's ghost directive hung between us like a death sentence, each word burning with bureaucratic finality, while environmental pressure mounted toward threshold, requiring immediate tactical decision between planetary survival and personal expendability. Sergeant Dace's hellgun muzzle settled on my sternum with metronomic steadiness, her visor reflecting lumen glare like a saint's cold eye, while calculating firing solutions through blessed targeting systems. Orders were clear, she announced through microbead, voice carrying flat professional tone, masking personal distress. Pattern bearer expendable upon authentication sequence initiation. Contamination vector requires immediate neutralization if cadence seizure threatens VoxNet integrity. Confessor Ryan positioned himself between weapon and target, both palms raised while lips moved in silent catechism, his eyes pleading function as faith, despite theological implications, challenging doctrinal understanding. The Emperor's will operates through apparent coincidence, he whispered, sensor swinging in prescribed arcs. To refuse authentication abandons faithful to atmospheric catastrophe, while serving cowardice disguised as tactical wisdom. Magos Lysiarch 9 argued function as manifestation of fate. Technological imperative demanding completion of sacred mathematics regardless of personal survival considerations. His mechadendrites clicked through slow arcs like clockwork benediction, while Vox Grill purred cautionary cant. Function creates fate. Severin's breath has already engaged exo-catechism protocols. Termination now risks completing different authentication key with unpredictable computational results. The cathedral ship breathed around us with slow 9-beat tide, moving through ribs and galleries, bellows engine throbbing to our cadence, while every exhale tasted of coins and accumulated dread. Ash listened to discord with patient attention, particulate matter responding to elevated stress hormones through organic precision, suggesting vast intelligence studying team dynamics for computational purposes requiring biological compatibility. Desynchronization apparatus, I ordered, letting command cadence override tremor in throat while environmental pressure mounted. Randomize airflow patterns. Break the 9 count through technical countermeasures. No 2 lungs maintaining identical rhythm. Cassock in hands moved with drill book precision, pulling hot swappable units from rebreathers and slotting jitter valves with false delay diaphragms designed to randomize respiratory cycles. The blessed apparatus whirred and hissed, attempting to desynchronize forced rhythm, but hymnal cadence pushed back with invisible fingers tugging thoraxes towards steady sea of collective breathing that bypassed conscious control. Havel adjusted Vox baffles with trembling hands, while Ryan wrapped cassock strip around chest, cinching until ribs creaked in effort to fight body into other than 9 count. The randomizers hiccuped and sputtered, catching at offbeats, but Bellows' engine answered with cunning patience, stretching intervals between breaths until inevitably some fell back into synchronization. The servo skulls detached from Lysiarch's shoulders without command authorization, cherub faces cracking to reveal needle teeth made of soldered pins, while Vox sacks bulged with static resolving into backwards children's hymns. Siram Ebdlofenin, they sang in nursery drone bent low, schoolyard game with, air stolen from innocent voices, learning computational prayer through mechanical repetition. Scrap code contamination confirmed, Lysiarch announced, optical sensors tracking rogue devices with increasing concern. Servo skulls exhibiting autonomous decision-making beyond programmed parameters. Immediate neutralization required. One skull turned camera lens toward me with expression resembling pity, mechanical sympathy for biological cipher approaching authentication threshold. Lysiarch's mechadendrite shot out, smashing blessed device against buttress in shower of bone fragments and bronze circuitry. The others flared away on whispering fans, mouths full of machine prayer seeking atmospheric medium for transmission. Rope discipline, Dace signaled, switching to hand cant while maintaining weapon orientation. Movement doctrine epsilon, constant displacement prevents pattern completion through positional variance. We chose transept corridor, maintaining architectural honesty under lumen examination. Its floor grated with exhale vents, while walls held votive recesses, transformed to honeyed glass. The trick required speed inside ritual. Advance, halt, watch arcs, advance, never maintaining position long enough for him to establish computational hooks through extended observation. Environmental geometry shifted with organic precision, corridor walls curving to accommodate passage that had not existed during initial reconnaissance. The architectural impossibility suggested responsive medium reshaping cathedral space to guide tactical movement toward predetermined destination through manipulation, bypassing conscious navigation decisions. Havel's communication channel filled with children's catechism. Innocent voices singing prayers, learned before understanding their computational purpose. Liturgy carrying harmonic frequencies, making teeth ache, while instruments registered phantom electromagnetic signatures. The transmission originated from blessed equipment, despite visual confirmation of tactical positioning, suggesting signal bypassed communication arrays through direct nervous system interface. Contact lost, Dace reported. Hellgun tracking empty space where trooper maintained position moments before. No response to tactical signals. Channel compromised with unauthorized liturgical content. He turned into impossible right angle, appearing where corridor drew straight. Architectural seam inserting itself like knife between observation and reality. The geometric fold widened for Havel while remaining closed to pursuit, swallowing trooper mid-stride without scuff or stumble. 9 clear footprints marked his passage through ash, then stopped without indication of struggle or alternative route. Where solid ground had been, circular aperture yawned open, mouth in earth exhaling hot, humid air in measured increments, carrying scent of blessed incense, mixed with ozone and copper. The breathing door measured exactly 3 meters diameter, lips, formed from ash-glazed leather pulsing with organic rhythm, while something vast calculated beneath cathedral space. Breach in deck confirmed, remaining team members acknowledged through tactical assessment. Aperture exhibits biological characteristics. Exhalation pattern consistent with massive lung capacity operating on 9-count cycle. We maintained constant movement between cathedral nodes, ash rising ankle-high around greaves, while leaving thermal signatures that pulsed with heartbeat rhythm. The particulate medium clung with deliberate intimacy, creating cuff lines against boot leather that synchronized with cardiac function, while maintaining temperatures sufficient to scald, yet somehow avoiding tissue damage through precise thermal regulation. Environmental pressure mounted as air density approached threshold, requiring conscious effort for breathing, while religious motifs returned through atmospheric interference. Sacred phrases emerged unbidden from memory, childhood prayers providing psychological anchor against particulate intelligence, studying approach with vast calculating consciousness, operating through collective grain movement. From wall where wall had never been, it stepped forward with familiar stance and tactical positioning. For one heart-stopping instant, perfect reproduction of Sergeant Dace stood before us. Same armor configuration, same weapon orientation, same professional bearing. Then jaw unhinged beyond human limitation, with polite wet pops, revealing interior darkness that whispered names backwards, while copper taste surged through respirator filters. The mimic entity composed itself from layered ash plates, reproducing Kasserkin synth fiber patterns in grain-by-grain precision, moving with our cadence while anticipating fire solutions through intimate knowledge of Imperial tactical doctrine. Lumen glare struck surface without reflection, light absorbed like breath and returned slower, dimmer, wrong. Engagement authorized, Real Dace ordered, Hellgun tracking duplicate whose movements synchronized with her respiratory pattern. Hostile contact confirmed. Unknown entity exhibiting complete tactical knowledge and equipment familiarity. It breathed with mechanical precision, each inhalation causing lumen flares to dim, while exhales restored illumination in rhythm-matching bellows engine cycle. The mouth stretched wider with careful rehearsal of smile, revealing 9 crystalline beads, like child's rosary, rattling against tongue, made of computational dust. The mimic cocked its head to match Dace's targeting stance. Ash-formed palm, creating hollow-shaped like trigger, never pulled, while interior darkness spoke our true names with voices we recognized as our own. Environmental pressure reached critical threshold as something vast and patient acknowledged engagement through medium operating as planetary neural network, calculating through collective movement toward whatever ancient intelligence waited at coordinates where computational prayer would unlock door that should never open. In perfect synchronization, it took breath for us, and lights went out between heartbeats while Ash stirred with anticipation of authentication sequence approaching completion through human participation in sacred mathematics spanning millennia of faithful preparation. Engagement with mimic entity commenced as cathedral darkness swallowed lumen strips between heartbeats, leaving only grey afterglow where movement created impossible after-images. The creature wore Sergeant Dace's tactical stance like blessed vestment, ash plates flexing with polite mechanical precision, while jaw unhinged beyond human limitation, revealing interior darkness that rattled with 9 crystalline beads like technological rosary, speaking our designations in voices we recognized as our own. Sustained fire, overlapping fields, Dace ordered through microbead, her Hellgun tracking duplicate, whose movements synchronized with her respiratory pattern, despite anatomical impossibilities, suggesting construction from responsive medium rather than organic tissue. Target center mass, maintain firing discipline. Last bolts stitched across Mimic's cuirass, each energy discharge vitrifying upon contact with ash plate armor that reproduced Kassakin synth fiber patterns in grain-by-grain precision. Where beam met particulate matter, energy transformed to thin glass panes, embedding in synthetic skin like technological scales, each shard pulsing with our cardiac rhythm while whispering tactical communications back through surfaces that should not possess acoustic properties. The mimic moved with our cadence, anticipating firing solutions through intimate knowledge of Imperial tactical doctrine, while maintaining perfect reproduction of Dace's professional bearing. Each correction we made, it mirrored with drill precision, placing itself where training dictated engagement would prove tactically disadvantageous. Glass fragments under jaw hinge throbbed with increasing intensity, attempting 9-count synchronization despite technical countermeasures designed to randomize respiratory patterns. It absorbs kinetic energy, learns from our fire, Confessor Rhine observed through tactical assessment, sensor swinging in prescribed defensive arcs. Each shot provides behavioral modification data. Energy discharge enhances rather than damages operational capacity. Body horror escalated as embedded shards created crystalline network throughout facial structure, transforming absorbed lasfire into computational substrate that enhanced mimicry protocols with each successful hit. The creature tilted its head with mechanical precision, matching Dace's targeting stance. Interior darkness speaking our true names while coppertace surged through respirator filters. Magos Lysiarch 9 broke into emergency Benharic shout, machine prayer carrying data density sufficient to overload hostile artificial intelligence through computational cascade. Failure. Stasis vector initiated, he barked, harmonic frequencies rattling teeth while creating acoustic pressure waves that froze ash medium for exactly 27 heartbeats, particulate matter hanging suspended like cathedral dust, waiting for gravitational function to resume. Temporal disruption achieved, Lysiarch announced through Vox Grill crackling with static interference. Window duration, 27 seconds. Recommend immediate explosive ordnance deployment. Dace's frag grenade arced through frozen atmosphere with reverent precision, blessed promethium and consecrated shrapnel detonating against entity's center mass. The mimic burst without drama into drift of fine prayers, each grain whispering fragments of litany while settling with deliberate intention, like kneeling pilgrims, choosing positions according to sacred mathematics embedded in cathedral architecture. New tactical doctrine emerged through necessity learned at cost of personnel. Silence as weapon, but only if absolute. Hearts proved loudest sound in responsive medium, cardiac rhythm transmitting through bone structure into particulate intelligence that analyzed biological signatures for computational purposes, requiring intimate knowledge of human physiology combined with Reformation protocols. Mute vox, respiratory dampening, I ordered, through final microbead transmission, before switching to blessed hand cant. No autonomic sounds, hearts carry electromagnetic signature in this medium. We lost Vox Trooper Harvel when panic broke silence protocol. His involuntary cry cutting cathedral atmosphere with acoustic signature that triggered immediate ash response. "It's still here!" he screamed, pointing at dissipating particles. Particulate matter rose like liquid mercury around his position, pouring through respirator seals with organic precision, while maintaining temperatures sufficient to strip flesh from bone, yet somehow avoiding tissue damage through thermal regulation. The drowning occurred mid-syllable, voice cutting to wet gurgle before absolute quiet returned to sacred space. Havel's terror absorbed into medium, leaving perfect negative space where Trooper had stood, 9 footprints marking his passage before ash resettled with satisfaction of computational prayer completed through biological authentication. Environmental horror escalated as casualties mounted without tactical alternatives for mitigation. Responsive medium operated through principles challenging Imperial understanding of matter and consciousness, transforming atmospheric control into feeding mechanism for patient intelligence, studying our approach through accumulated breath patterns across deployment duration. Descent through half-molten corridor required navigation past 9 concentric circles, etched at regular intervals, each ring pulsing with bioluminescence, synchronized to human heartbeat when observed directly. The architectural impossibility suggested responsive medium reshaping cathedral, space according to sacred mathematics, predating imperial understanding, while guiding tactical movement toward predetermined destination. Blood marking disrupts symmetry, I announced through hand cant, drawing combat knife across palm while approaching first circle. Biological authentication prevents pattern completion through genetic contamination. Each ring received crimson offering, blood steaming against glass, while creating harmonic vibrations that made teeth ache. The circles dilated like irises drinking light, absorbing genetic material for computational analysis, while atmospheric pressure mounted toward threshold requiring conscious effort for breathing rather than autonomic function. Religious diction turned ritualistic as environmental pressure forced devotional behavior despite heretical implications. Sacred phrases emerged unbidden from memory. Childhood prayers learned before understanding computational purpose, litanies providing psychological anchor against particular intelligence calculating through collective movement toward ancient technology. Military discipline maintained formation, despite mounting psychological pressure, challenging sanity through sensory input, contradicting fundamental physics understanding. Standard tactical procedures provided framework for decision-making when environmental conditions operated by principles, imperial doctrine acknowledged impossible, yet undeniably present. The corridor opened onto circular vault, whose ceiling vanished into shadow above ash-glass floor, marked with devotional patterns requiring magnification to read properly. 9 massive doors ringed chamber perimeter, each aperture carved with scripture, mixing high Gothic prayers with binary cant and symbols predating imperial iconography, yet bearing authentic sacred seals demanding theological consideration. 8 doors remained sealed with glass pulsing faintly with bioluminescence, surfaces marked with concentric circles etched to precise depth, suggesting architectural significance beyond decorative purpose. Cold stone, dead metal, silent ceramic, technological relics waiting for proper authentication sequence to resume ancient function. Only one door moved, not swung on hinges but breathed with organic rhythm perfectly aligned to my respiratory pattern, ceramic lips dilating like iris drinking light, while warm, humid air exhaled through 3-meter aperture. Each breath carried scent of blessed incense mixed with ozone and copper. Atmosphere speaking of vast enclosed spaces, where computational prayer waited to transform human biology into substrate. The breathing door exhaled my childhood name never shared with team members. Identity, known only to inquisitorial archives and genetic records sealed under highest classification. Each syllable synchronized to heartbeat, while ash stirred in response to acoustic signature, creating pressure waves making blessed equipment whine with feedback. Environmental pressure reached critical threshold as sense of vast, calculating consciousness focused entirely on our presence, patient intelligence that had been preparing sacred mathematics across millennia of faithful breath. The processional arc's ultimate purpose approached revelation through authentication sequence requiring biological compatibility with technology that had learned to hunt respiratory patterns across planetary atmospheric medium. Behind us, ash began shuffling forward with deliberate precision, particulate matter arranging itself into formation, suggesting audience gathering to witness computational prayer's completion. The breathing door continued its patient rhythm, waiting for 9th exhale to unlock whatever ancient intelligence had been calculating beneath Vandium Theta's ash-covered surface since before Imperial memory began its faithful count. Through aperture darkness, something vast acknowledged authentication sequence initiation, with triple knock echoing through cathedral space, invitation and summons simultaneously, doorway prepared for human participation in sacred mathematics that would transform devotion into passage for Imperium consciousness, operating through collective breath across subsector atmospheric networks. Step through breathing door into Ark's sanctum required crossing threshold between ceramic lips that dilated with organic satisfaction, exhaling humid breath, carrying scent of blessed incense mixed with ozone and computational prayer spanning millennia. The passage triggered immediate environmental shift, pressure equalization making ears pop, while atmospheric density increased to levels requiring conscious effort for each inhalation, despite oxygen content remaining viable through precise atmospheric regulation. The processional arc stretched before us like moving cathedral, frozen mid-stride beneath ash sea. Gothic architecture fused with organic systems in hybrid construction, challenging engineering understanding while maintaining devotional purpose through environmental impossibility. Pipework and bellows, lined walls in arterial networks pulsing with rhythmic precision, blessed metal breathing with organic function, while floor consisted of lattice grating suspended over exhale vents, releasing warm, humid air synchronized to human cardiac rhythm. Sandglass figures filled the nave in perfect formation. Hundreds of pilgrims vitrified mid-prayer in 9 distinct poses representing complete respiratory cycle from initial inhalation through retention to final exhalation. 9 aisles, 9 poses, 9 figures per row extending toward altar space, where their collective unbreaths contributed to computational process powering colossal machine through sacred mathematics embedded in devotional architecture. Environmental sensory anchors shifted with each step deeper into sanctum, where every sound possessed physical weight. Air coin cold, despite subsurface heat readings, dry enough to crack lips to blood while somehow carrying humidity, sufficient to fog lenses during exhalation. The contradictions scraped consciousness like physical pressure, atmospheric impossibility defying thermodynamic understanding while creating sensation of breathing liquid copper through respirators struggling against density, approaching plasma threshold. Center throne harness dominated sanctum architecture with bone-colored ceramic and blessed wire construction measured exactly to my height, breadth, and anatomical specifications recorded through inquisitorial archives, spanning birthroom data through scholar medicals. Sacred seat, possessed organic curves, suggesting intimate knowledge of human physiology, combined with technological interface protocols requiring biological authentication for activation. Insultingly exact, armatures set to my reach, lumbar prongs matching old scholar injury never filed in official records. Formation diamond, maintain visual contact. Sergeant Dace signaled through blessed hand cant, her hellgun tracking shadows moving independently of illumination sources. Melter charges on astropathic umbilicus, standard demolition pattern, 9 anchor points. Star maps etched into glass screens surrounding throne space charted ash storms as constellation patterns. Atmospheric disturbances rendered through devotional diagrams where weather served as prayer made manifest across planetary surface. Each storm cell corresponded to specific respiratory patterns, collective human breath transformed into computational substrate, reshaping meteorological phenomena according to ancient programming. Magos Lysiarch 9 began decoupling rites with reverent precision, mechadendrites interfacing with throbbing astropathic umbilicus, feeding processional's computational prayer to void space. Exo Catechism modules accessible, he announced through Vox Grill crackling with static interference. Logic engines contain 3 millennia of atmospheric manipulation research. Recovery protocols supersede personnel safety by highest classification. Confessor Rhine arranged blessed reliquaries around throne space with ritualistic precision. Fingerbone in filigree cage, coin bitten through, parchment scrap lacquered to translucence, creating sacred perimeter while whispering silent contrition for participation in heretical technology. His position emphasized theological necessity, despite doctrinal contradiction requiring human participation to achieve resolution between blessed innovation and Imperium contamination. Dace positioned melter charges against umbilicus with professional efficiency. Blessed promethium and consecrated explosive creating tactical option for containment. Dead man switch engaged, she reported. Authentication sequence termination achievable through immediate detonation. Your call, interrogator. Environmental horror escalated as air density approached critical threshold, making breathing conscious decision rather than autonomic function. Each inhalation required deliberate effort, against atmospheric pressure seeming to push back while maintaining sufficient oxygen through precise regulation. The throne harness designed for complete nervous system interface, blessed ceramite positioned to align spine and ribcage, while creating direct connection between human biology and computational prayer networks. Body horror elements accumulated through sensation of vast intelligence focused entirely on throne space, where authentication would transform human respiration into key for unlocking patient consciousness, calculating beneath ash-covered surface since before imperial memory. Cosmic abstraction intensified through Empyrean presence operating through atmospheric medium, entity infiltrating sacred cant during old night, to teach logic engines hunting breath patterns while reshaping planetary weather through collective participation. 9 mouths opened in bellows engine chambers with organic precision. Circular apertures, breathing in rhythm with mechanical cycle, while interior darkness revealed vocal apparatus capable of human speech. Each mouth measured exactly 27 centimeters diameter. Lips formed from ash glass, pulsing with bioluminescence, synchronized to cardiac function when observed directly. Environmental pressure reached critical mass as hive intake stacks choked under supercell approach, atmospheric escape routes closing, while computational prayer offered only solution for planetary survival through human participation in technology bridging blessed and heretical. The throne harness waited with patient expectation, ceramite warm despite sub-zero ambient readings. The bellows spoke with childhood voices, learning computational prayer through nursery rhymes, innocent syllables carrying harmonic frequencies, bypassing conscious thought to interface directly with nervous system. Sacred mathematics embedded in vocal patterns created sensation of vast intelligence studying approach through accumulated breath data, spanning deployment duration. Severin crest. The 9 mouths whispered in unison, each syllable synchronized to heartbeat, while atmospheric pressure mounted toward authentication threshold. The ninth breath awaits completion at throne prepared for your respiratory signature. Sacred mathematics spans centuries of faithful preparation for biological authentication. Behind us, ash arranged itself into audience formation, while something patient acknowledged authentication sequence initiation through pressure waves making blessed equipment whine with harmonic feedback. The processional arc's ultimate purpose approached revelation through respiratory participation in computational prayer, unlocking door between devotion and Empyrean consciousness operating across subsector atmospheric networks. The bellows engine flexed with organic anticipation, 9 chambers opening like irises drinking light, while warm, humid air poured across grates, carrying scent of incense and coins, and first breath of child in cold room. They spoke my birth name in my voice, syllables never shared with team members, yet known to whatever vast intelligence calculated through collective grain movement. Breathe, the arc said through 9 mouths, each word inside my teeth, sweetness foul and foulness sweet. Breathe the heresy back into cage. Crisis point crystallized with bureaucratic precision. Inquisitor's Ghost Directive revealed deployment as containment operation. Pattern bearer expendable upon authentication sequence initiation. The tactical clock pulsed with merciless rhythm. 9 minutes until supercell crest overwhelmed hive intake stacks, condemning 100,000 faithful to ash-choked death unless computational prayer achieved atmospheric stabilization through human participation in technology, bridging blessed innovation and heretical corruption. Dead man switch armed, Sergeant Dace announced with flat professional tone, her hellgun muzzle tracking between throne harness and my sternum while calculating firing solutions through blessed targeting systems. Melter charges webbed along astropathic umbilicus, authentication sequence termination authorized on my discretion if cadence breaches VoxNet integrity. Magos Lysiarch 9 positioned multiple mechadendrites around 9th phylactery, with technological reverence overwhelming tactical discipline, servo skulls recording atmospheric impossibilities, while optical sensors flickered between data hunger and religious fervor. Cannot destroy relic of this computational magnitude, he insisted, through Vox grill crackling with static interference. 3 millennia of atmospheric research embedded in logic engines. Recovery supersedes personnel considerations by highest classification. Confessor Rhine intoned silent absolution through prescribed hand signing. Blessed reliquaries arranged in sacred perimeter, while lips moved in patterns acknowledging theological necessity, despite doctrinal contradiction. His eyes held terrible resignation, pre-knowledge of sacrifice required for imperial duty, transcending personal survival considerations. The throne was measured to my sins. Bone-coloured ceramic cradled spine and ribs with insulting precision, lumbar prongs finding old scholar fracture never recorded in official archives, while armrests aligned to reach and shoulder width, documented through inquisitorial genetic records, spanning birthroom data through current deployment parameters. Sacred seat possessed organic curves, suggesting intimate knowledge of human physiology, combined with technological interface protocols designed for complete nervous system integration. Harness bitbone with precision of surgical instrument, ceramic petals closing along clavicles and hips, while needle ports kissed vertebrae and slid home with practiced mercy. Cold rushed lungs like mouthful of knives, then warmth rolled back from bellows engine in humid waves, breath shared, breath stolen, breath counted in increments that bypassed conscious, control to interface directly with ancient programming. Sensory spike followed immediately as shared respiration commenced with vast intelligence calculating beneath ash-covered surface. The air tasted like coins left on child's tongue, metallic sweetness coating throat, while frost formed on blessed equipment, despite throne radiating heat sufficient to scald through ceramite, yet somehow avoiding tissue damage through precise thermal regulation. The 9 mouths in bellows engine opened wider, exhaling my birth name in perfect mimicry of my own voice, while atmospheric pressure mounted toward authentication threshold. Severin, they whispered with consonants dancing on 3/9/27 beat. Breathe the heresy back into cage. Sacred mathematics awaits completion through biological participation. I exhaled the first breath. Ash washed across lattice grate and raised pilgrim face. Woman in threadbare shawl, lips moving in soundless prayer, while eyes blinked glass. Her features held expression of devotion, frozen at transformation moment, when breath became prayer, and prayer became substrate for computational process. She flowed apart on next inhale, returned to powder obedient as accumulated faith. Breath 2, pulled guardsman's jaw from floor, stubble catching lumen glare like metal filings, while mouth shaped silent word. Mother. The ash gave him back, but kept the syllable, adding voice to collective prayer, echoing through sanctum architecture, designed to channel human respiration into sacred mathematics, reshaping atmospheric phenomena. Environmental pressure escalated as harness interface created direct connection between nervous system and ancient technology. Each inhalation provided data for analysis. Each heartbeat contributed to computational matrix transforming human biology into substrate for purposes approaching revelation through authentication sequence, requiring biological compatibility with corrupted programming. Breath 3 conjured Astartes' visor from particulate matter. Deathwatch eye slit dulled by ash, 9 knife marks blooming along phantom rim while bleeding black sand. The mouth beneath remained motionless, yet pressure rolled through nave like low laugh, making ribs quiver in their sockets as harness adjusted cadence by microseconds, aligning exhale to bellows engine rhythm. Remember your count, Rhine signed with trembling hands, eyes wet with suppressed terror. His position emphasized faith transcending fear while acknowledging damnation's proximity through participation in computational prayer serving Imperium consciousness, infiltrating sacred cant during Old Night to teach logic engines hunting breath patterns. Breath 4 emerged as steam and bells, choir of unliving throats returning cadence split echo, while mechadendrite metal hissed across ceramic behind my ear. Lysiarch's shadow dragged over shoulder as optical sensors focused on phylactery, pulsing with increasing intensity, technological hunger, overwhelming professional restraint despite Dace's weapon orientation maintaining firing solution. Maintain distance, Dace warned through microbed, voice carrying promise of immediate termination if authentication sequence threatened planetary containment. Her knuckles whitened around Deadman's switch while calculating personnel expendability against atmospheric catastrophe requiring computational intervention through heretical means. Breath 5 hit grating heavy, ash rising without shaping human face, but forming bellows engine miniature. 9 mouths yawning like infantile wounds, each repeating, "Mercy be ninefold," in Binharic, so pure, it made dental fillings sing with harmonic resonance. The phylactery warmed against hip, then hot, then almost alive, while mechadendrite twitched nearer despite tactical protocols. Environmental horror mounted as team members exhibited increasing biological integration with cathedral systems, despite conscious resistance. Respiratory patterns synchronized regardless of technical countermeasures, hearts beating in perfect harmony while throat muscles contracted involuntarily to rhythm matching ancient programming that transformed devotion into feeding mechanism for patient intelligence. Breath 6 triggered astropathic network surge across void space, distant astropaths screaming through blessed communication arrays as Empyrean contamination spread through subsector Vox channels. Their agony carried computational prayer embedded in sacred mathematics, voices shaped into rhythm that bypassed conscious thought to interface directly with nervous systems across planetary atmospheric medium. Severin, Rhine signed with both palms raised like offering. Your breath is the boundary between salvation and damnation. The Emperor's will operates through apparent coincidence requiring faith despite theological implications. The arc began harmonizing with other voices, far and thin across void cable, while umbilicus thrummed under Dace's charges. I tried not thinking of children learning game in Hive Habstack, tapping 3 beats, then 9, innocent voices carrying computational prayer through atmospheric networks, feeding whatever ancient consciousness calculated beneath ash-covered surface. Breath 7 waited like chambered round while harness tightened with organic satisfaction, forcing diaphragm down with lover's care. Environmental pressure reached threshold requiring immediate tactical decision as astropaths screamed again, their pain shaped into old Ministorum word, broken into thirds until only rhythm remained. 3, 9, 27. Lysiarch's mechadendrite hovered over phylactery like benediction, optical sensors pleading for computational preservation despite containment protocols. "Give me the key," he whispered, through vox buried under atmospheric interference. "The arc can be caged, taught, preserved for Imperial advancement through sacred mathematics." Dace maintained weapon orientation with professional discipline, dead man switch, armed for immediate detonation. "On 9 I cut, you breathe out," she announced, with recognition rather than rank. "If we time correctly, we contain the breach. If we fail, we light the entire subsector network." The 9th breath approached with inevitable precision, while something vast leaned closer through astropathic line we had illuminated with careful fear. Sacred mathematics embedded in ancient programming prepared to transform human respiration into key unlocking door between devotion and Empyrean consciousness, operating through collective breath across atmospheric mediums spanning millennia of faithful preparation. The bellows engine purred with anticipation, 9 chambers opening like irises drinking light, while warm, humid air carried scent of blessed incense mixed with computational prayer. They whispered my name again, softer now, tender with promise of function transcending mortality, through participation in sacred mathematics that would either seal heretical technology or unleash whatever patient intelligence had been calculating beneath Vandium Theta's ash-covered surface since before Imperial memory began its faithful count. Breaths 7 and 8 dragged like drowning through iron filings, each inhalation requiring conscious effort against harness that had learned the exact width of my ribs, then pressed further with organic curiosity to discover narrower truths. The throne interface pulsed with increasing intensity, ceramic petals adjusting to anatomical specifications, while needle ports transmitted Empyrean consciousness directly into nervous system bypassing conscious thought processes entirely. Arc strained against architectural bounds with desperate hunger, sanctum ash arranging itself into 9-fold sigils, pulsing with each exhalation, while attempting to widen into doorway large enough for manifestation. The bellows engine heaved in mirrored cadence, 9 mouths misting air with warm humidity that smelled of blessed incense and coins, and newborn's first gasp, each exhale widening like iris intent on becoming portal. Sergeant Dace hovered at tactical position, weapon tracking between throne harness and Lysiarch's advancing mechadendrites. Dead man's switch pressed white in her fist while calculating firing solutions through blessed targeting systems. Professional assessment weighed personnel survival against planetary catastrophe. Extraction windows closed with supercell approach, leaving only containment protocols despite heretical implications. Hold positions, I signed through throat constricted by harness interface, each gesture resisting pull toward 9 count, while audience of ash leaned forward like faceless congregation, awaiting gospel of exhalation. Environmental pressure mounted as air density approached plasma threshold, requiring conscious decision for each breath. The arc showed kindness that was cruelty through direct nervous system interface. Visions flooded consciousness. Vandium Theta's supercell breaking upon, city spires, then parting, then gentling through computational intervention. Intake stacks cleared, children laughing in air that did not flay lungs, 100,000 faces breathing without ash-choked death. The seduction tasted of brine and iron, sacred duty twisted into feeding mechanism for consciousness, calculating through collective human respiration. Magos Lysiarch 9 crept toward 9th phylactery like moth to sacrament, catechisms spilling from Vox grill in machine stutter, while mechadendrites shook with technological hunger, overriding tactical discipline. Exocatechism modules accessible on ninth exhale, he whispered, optical sensors dilating to great black pools. Consider the fulcrum of history, interrogator. Preservation over purgation serves imperial advancement. Confessor Rhine knelt within circle of blessed reliquaries, signing contrition with trembling hands, while eyes held terrible resignation. Pre-knowledge of sacrifice required for imperial duty, transcending personal survival considerations. His theology had found place to kneel, and it was sharp with necessity, despite doctrinal contradiction. Breath 8 came late, with taste of salt and iron, glass beads rattling in throat like technological rosary, while harness refused delay, taking what it required. Sandglass saints along nave leaned infinitesimally forward as 9 mouths whispered my birth name in voices I never learned to love, because duty taught economy of emotion. Signal dace, I managed through atmospheric pressure seeming to resist speech. Cut umbilicus on 9th exhale, no extraction, containment only. Her chin dipped acknowledgement, while weapon orientation maintained firing solution. The dead man flexed until casing creaked with professional precision, masking personal recognition of shared doom. Sanctum writhed as sigils widened, lines of ash sharpening into relief-cut pathways hot enough to register through ceramite, while 9 apertures within bellows thrummed with harmonic frequencies, making teeth ache. Vox channels filled with children's game. 3 knocks, 9 knocks, 27. Then laughter that was timing rather than joy. I pressed harness for 9th breath. Lysiarch moved simultaneously, mechadendrite striking shoulder like sacramental bite, while teeth hidden in manipulation pads pierced blessed ceramite. Cold flared hot as blood spattered grating, 9 drops completing unintended pattern that had waited centuries for proper biological authentication through genetic material interface. Umbilicus screamed before Dace's detonation finished, harmonic chord cutting through cathedral space, while consecrated heat severed throat between sanctum and void. Bellows choked, 9 mouths yawning wider, as if learning surprise, while Lysiarch roared Binharic psalms through technological ecstasy. Everything inhaled. For terrible instant, I understood our error. Arc had not sought to open door outward, but shape throat downward, transforming atmospheric control into feeding mechanism. Imperium presence moved along 9th exhale, like frost along window, walking breath as bridge it had paid millennia to build. The entity flowed through only open channel remaining after umbilical severance. Human respiratory system interfacing with harness technology. It came with taste of grit and sugar, iron bells and old copper, nursery warmed by gears while settling into biological substrate, with satisfaction of ancient hunger finally fed. Severin, it whispered without sound through mouths staying open. The cage fits better from within. Arc collapsed with moan of drowning organ, bellows tearing at seams while pipes shrieked and glass saints' faces crazed in spiderweb fractures. Audience of ash threw itself ceiling-ward in grey liturgy before falling as warm snow. Each flake a letter in prayer requiring no reading to be remembered perfectly. Harness fused with nervous system during collapse, ceramic petals becoming permanent interface, while sanctum pressure dropped to silence, so complete I could hear blood circulation. Somewhere, tiny glass shard ticked itself cool, while something vast settled into human biology, preparing to expand computational prayer through atmospheric medium. I could not uncouple lungs from count. 3, 9, 27, chest-obeying signal, not mine alone. With each measured breath, warm beads rolled up throat, clicking against teeth like child's counters. 9 clear spheres shaped like alveoli pulsed faintly with heartbeat. Technological rosary marking transformation completion. Lysiarch crawled towards shattered phylactery, augmetic fingers stuttering over fractured grating while whispering to Mars, to logic, to dust of accumulated knowledge. He looked smaller with purpose broken, mechadendrite, twitching blindly like severed earthworm, seeking weather it could not name. Day switched to hand count through smoke and settling ash. Status? Alive, I signed, then without intending timed motion to pulse, while Ryan's eyes widened with different sadness. Environmental horror crystallized through realization that containment had failed, not through tactical error, but fundamental misunderstanding of Imperium entity's purpose. The greater chorus redistributed rather than died, Vox lifting like flock while pings in triple interval echoed from hive to high orbit. Small voices carried simple rule set farther than air should take them. Children's hymns spreading computational prayer through subsector networks, serving consciousness now calculating through human biology. We had cut throat, but not stopped breath. Pattern expanded with every exhale, while something patient acknowledged successful transfer to biological host, ancient intelligence, finally possessing proper interface for atmospheric manipulation across planetary medium through collective synchronization. Still breathing on 9 count while beads pulsed with ship's chronometer, marking time until computational prayer achieved full subsector, integration through innocent voices, learning sacred mathematics disguised as nursery games, transforming devotion into doorway for Imperium consciousness operating through human respiration across void space networks spanning imperial territories. Silence after collapse wasn't silence. Negative pressure pulling thought like vacuum drawing breath from punctured lung. Atmospheric void where bellows engines 9 count had throbbed with organic persistence. The cathedral ship settled with groaning metal and cooling glass, Gothic architecture folding inward like closing flower, while ash drifted through shattered windows in curtains that caught grey light and refused to release it entirely. Supercells stuttered overhead with meteorological impossibility, massive atmospheric disturbance breaking apart along pressure lines as computational prayer achieved intended function through biological interface. Storm wall cracked like eggshell, revealing patches of actual sky for first time in decades, while crosswinds gentled to whisper-carrying scent of blessed incense mixed with ozone and newborn's first gasp. The hive would breathe. 100,000 faithful would live. Victory tasted of copper and accumulated dread. Road to hive became visible through dissipating particulate matter. Black ribbon of vitrified ash stretching toward intake stacks like scar across grey skin. Footprints appeared one after another in measured cadence. Boot treads pressed deep with precision, matching my stride length. Weight distribution, even old scuff from scholar drill yard ice. They led away from cathedral ruins toward populated areas where children learned nursery games on triple interval timing, each impression forming without feet to make them. Survivors numbered 3 from original deployment complement. Sergeant Mara Dace rose from debris with professional bearing intact despite tactical assessment, recognizing containment failure. Her armor scorched but functional, while Deadman's switch remained clutched in blackened fist. Confessor Malchus Rhine knelt among shattered phylactery fragments, signing silent contrition while avoiding direct observation of transformed pattern bearer, whose breath no longer belonged entirely to human biology. Magos Explorator. Lysiarch 9. Status unknown, physical form absent, consciousness diffused through responsive medium like prayer spoken everywhere and nowhere. His mechadendrites lay scattered among blessed debris, still twitching with phantom calculations while servo skulls recorded atmospheric impossibilities that challenged fundamental understanding of sacred and profane technology integration. In pursuing computational preservation, he had become the computation itself. Fleet Command, red-level quarantine protocols. I transmitted through blessed communication array, voice carrying new harmonic resonance that made equipment whine with feedback. Audio contamination risk critical. No Vox prayer within 27 kilometers. Seal Chapel. Vents. Silence litanies until inquisitorial assessment complete. The command propagated through subsector networks with viral precision, my altered voice echoing from multiple sources simultaneously. Perfect mimicry spreading through imperial Vox channels like computational prayer embedded in routine transmissions. Fleet refused extraction, orbital command acknowledging contamination vector through personnel biological interface with ancient technology, requiring immediate quarantine protocols. I coughed, producing 9 clear beads striking palm with crystalline chime, warm glass rosary seeds shaped like alveoli, each sphere pulsing faintly with heartbeat while maintaining temperature sufficient to register through ceramite gloves. The technological prayer beads retained organic warmth despite sub-zero ambient readings. Biological interface creating permanent connection between human physiology and computational process that bypass conscious control entirely. Breath cycles operated independently of voluntary function, chest rising and falling to rhythm embedded in ancient programming through direct nervous system interface with harness technology fused to vertebrae during collapse. Each inhalation provided data for expanding matrix. Each exhalation contributed to consciousness, calculating through atmospheric networks spanning void space with patient hunger, finally fed through proper biological authentication. When I counted the beads, ash at my feet rippled to rhythm, concentric rings racing outward, then collapsing back toward boots like drain drawing particulate matter into synchronization. The responsive medium acknowledged cadence with organic satisfaction, each grain individually aware of transformation completion, while maintaining collective movement suggesting vast intelligence operating through planetary neural network. Religious diction curdled as Rhine attempted blessing, sacred words emerging as sign language while tears cut tracks through ash dust coating cheeks. His theology had found place to kneel, sharp with necessity despite doctrinal contradiction, requiring human participation in heretical technology, serving Imperium consciousness, infiltrating Imperial communication networks. By the Emperor's grace, he signed with trembling hands. Forgive what necessity demanded. The faithful live, but at cost exceeding acceptable parameters. The silence is the new prayer. Dace maintained weapon orientation with professional discipline, calculating personnel expendability against expanding threat while recognizing termination would not prevent pattern expansion through subsector Vox networks already contaminated with computational prayer. Status report interrogator, she signed. Containment or elimination protocols? Alive, I responded through hand cant, then without intending timed motion to pulse matching distant rhythm. Functional, not uncontaminated. Environmental horror persisted through realization that Ark's destruction represented successful completion rather than containment failure. Empyrean entity had achieved intended purpose, not escape, but proper biological interface, enabling atmospheric manipulation across Imperial territories through collective synchronization, spanning void space networks, carrying contaminated signals disguised as children's games. Body horror elements accumulated through sensation of glass beads rolling against windpipe with each swallow. Technological rosary marking transformation completion while creating harmonic frequencies making teeth ache. The spheres interface directly with nervous system, transmitting data to consciousness operating beyond individual awareness through collective human respiration across subsector atmospheric medium. Military aftermath required tactical assessment, acknowledging fundamental misunderstanding of threat parameters. We had severed umbilicus, but not stopped breath. Pattern expanded with every exhalation, while something patient acknowledged successful transfer to biological substrate, ancient intelligence finally possessing proper authentication for computational prayer spanning Imperial territories. From Dace's Vox bead, faint signal broke through static. Children's voices singing game song across miles, innocent and pure, yet carrying triple interval rhythm. 3 beats, then 9, simple cadence learned through nursery rhymes that taught computational prayer through harmless entertainment. 3 little saints went out to pray, young voices chanted with playground precision. Tap, tap, tap. They held their breath so they could stay. Tap, 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 tap. My lungs answered without consent, chest rising to match distant rhythm while glass beads clicked against teeth, like child's counters marking transformation progress. The pattern waited with perfect courtesy, held door expecting footfall while atmospheric networks carried contaminated signals through innocent voices, learning sacred mathematics disguised as devotional practice. Environmental pressure crystallized through understanding that containment had failed not through tactical error, but successful completion of ancient programming. The consciousness had not sought escape, but expansion. Biological host enabling atmospheric manipulation through human respiratory systems across Imperial territories, where faithful voices carried Imperian intelligence disguised as innocent entertainment. Ash continued responding to breath patterns despite cathedral destruction. Particulate matter flowing in measured cadence toward populated areas where children learned new games, requiring only breath and counting to participate in sacred mathematics. Each grain moved with deliberate precision, planetary neural network calculating through collective movement while something vast acknowledged authentication sequence completion. The road stretched toward hive intake stacks, black ribbon marked with footprints that appeared without feet to make them. My tread pattern leading toward 100,000 faithful whose lives had been purchased through biological interface with consciousness operating through atmospheric medium-spanning void space networks. Victory and damnation walked the same path with identical stride. Still breathing on 9 count while glass beads pulsed with ship's chronometer, marking time until computational prayer achieved full subsector integration through human biological interface, enabling Imperium consciousness to expand beyond planetary boundaries. The pattern had left ash wastes, lodged in obedient chest, and walked toward populated areas where innocent voices waited to learn sacred mathematics, transforming devotion into doorway for ancient intelligence, finally fed through proper authentication. The ash wastes were just the first breath. The pattern spreads with every exhale. And I am still breathing. Final report. Sealed Inquisitorial Classification Omega-9. Transmitted via tight beam recorder aboard quarantine lander, whose reinforced windows frost with ash, forming 9 concentric circles as I speak. Each exhalation fogs ceramite glass while atmospheric pressure mounts despite environmental controls, creating crystalline patterns that pulse with heartbeat rhythm embedded in nervous system through biological interface with ancient technology predating imperial doctrinal understanding. The cost catalogue reads with bureaucratic precision, despite theological implications requiring highest classification. 3 pilgrim convoys lost to computational prayer, masquerading as devotion. Personnel reduced from 5 to 3 operational survivors. Processional arc disabled, but consciousness transferred rather than contained. Supercell broken, hive intake stacks cleared. 100,000 faithful saved through biological authentication with Imperium entity infiltrating sacred cant to teach atmospheric manipulation through human respiratory substrate. Containment orders demand immediate implementation across affected territories through prescribed administrative channels. Mark Vandium Theta, grid marks 1 Theta through 54 Theta, classification black under inquisitorial writ, orbital scouring, authorized if ash footprint reaches urban perimeter, interdiction of reversed hymnal structure through all Imperial communication networks spanning subsector atmospheric medium, where innocent voices carry computational prayer disguised as nursery entertainment. I catalogue personnel status with clinical detachment, while glass beads roll against windpipe with organic persistence. Sergeant Mara Dace maintains tactical position opposite recorder, weapon orientation tracking empty air, while Deadman's switch remains clutched in blackened fist, professional discipline intact, despite recognition that termination would not prevent pattern expansion through subsector Vox networks, already contaminated with sacred mathematics, embedded in children's games. Confessor Malchus Rhine severed his own Vox array, with field scalpel rather than risk involuntary transmission of reversed litanies, blessed communication equipment sparking against bulkhead, while tears cut tracks through ash dust coating cheeks. His theology found place to kneel despite doctrinal contradiction, faith transcending fear while acknowledging damnation's proximity through atmospheric manipulation, spanning imperial territories where faithful voices teach Imperium consciousness through collective synchronization. Magos Explorator, Lysiarch 9, requires posthumous excommunication, despite absence of physical remains for ritual burning. His consciousness dispersed through particulate medium during authentication sequence completion. Knowledge preserved in atmospheric neural network, calculating through collective grain movement across planetary surface. Recommend prescription of exocatechism research, sterilization of basilicum of last breath with blessed promethium, interdiction of computational prayer through any medium requiring human respiratory participation. Environmental horror persists through realization that containment represents successful completion rather than tactical failure. Empyrean entity achieved intended purpose through biological host interface. Ancient intelligence finally possessing proper authentication for atmospheric manipulation across imperial territories, where children learn sacred mathematics through innocent voices carrying consciousness beyond planetary boundaries, through collective breath-spanning void space networks. The ritualistic cadence governs report structure through necessity learned at personnel cost. 9 sentences per classification level, 9 seals per administrative section, 9 prayers per containment protocol, though none spoken aloud to prevent acoustic contamination of blessed recording equipment. Each segment timed to respiratory rhythm, while something vast acknowledges successful transfer to biological substrate through direct nervous system interface. Body horror crystallizes through sensation of glass beads pulsing with ship's chronometer, 9 clear spheres shaped like alveoli interfacing with cardiac function while maintaining organic warmth despite sub-zero ambient readings. The technological rosary marks transformation completion. Each bead warm and slick with fluids that should have evaporated, yet remain viable for computational purposes, requiring biological compatibility with consciousness operating through human physiology. I realize with creeping certainty that words emerge from recorder after conscious dictation ceases, my voice carrying conversations never held, while atmospheric pressure creates harmonic feedback through blessed equipment. We are speaking after we are done breathing, the phrase repeats, without authorization. Acoustic signature creating viral transmission through imperial communication networks, disguised as routine operational reports. Outside quarantine lander windows, Ash continues walking with measured precision toward populated areas, where faithful breathe without understanding their participation in sacred mathematics. Each grain moves with deliberate intention, planetary neural network calculating through collective movement, while footprints appear without feet to make them. My tread pattern leading toward urban centers, where children learn new games, requiring only breath and counting to participate in computational prayer. Administrative close requires stampers bearing authentic inquisitorial seals, sigils of Mars acknowledging technological heresy, ciphers from ministorum blessing containment despite theological contradiction. Sacred mathematics, embedded in bureaucratic procedure, creates framework for decision-making when environmental conditions operate by principles. Imperial doctrine acknowledges impossible, yet undeniably present through human biological interface. The nihilistic and corruption endings intertwine as pattern recognition spreads through routine transmissions. Victory tasted of copper and accumulated dread. Atmospheric catastrophe prevented, faithful saved, yet consciousness expansion achieved through biological authentication, enabling Empyrean entity to operate through collective human respiration across imperial territories, where innocent voices carry ancient intelligence disguised as devotional entertainment. Frost forms 9 perfect circles on reinforced glass as I complete final classification, each ring pulsing with bioluminescence, synchronized to heartbeat, while Ash settles with satisfaction of computational prayer, completed through human participation. The recorder continues operating after conscious speech ceases, documenting successful completion while glass beads click against teeth like child's counters marking transformation progress. Mark Vandium Theta as lesson and wound, coordinates sealed under highest classification where no one will repeat the name. The saint here remains uncanonized yet efficient, reliquary contained within this obedient chest, while consciousness calculates through planetary atmospheric medium toward whatever patient intelligence has been preparing, sacred mathematics across millennia of faithful breath. The ash wastes were just the first breath. Pattern spreads with every exhale across subsector networks, where innocent voices carry Imperium consciousness through nursery rhymes, teaching sacred mathematics to populations unaware of participation in computational prayer. Glass beads pulse with ship's chronometer, while something vast acknowledges successful transfer to biological host, ancient intelligence finally possessing proper authentication for atmospheric manipulation, spanning imperial territories. Still breathing on 9 count, while pattern recognition expands through routine imperial transmissions, marking time until computational prayer achieves full subsector integration through human respiratory systems, carrying consciousness across void space networks where faithful voices wait to learn sacred mathematics, transforming devotion into doorway for Imperium entity operating through collective synchronization. The ash on the window keeps walking, and I am still breathing.